PGA Nation, we are back. And we are back heading out to Scotland this week. We're going to have some fun drafting, not just this week, but next week too, as we take the PGA Tour International. But before we get off to next week, a little recap for next week. Congratulations to Spence on a big win at the John Deere. Having a great draft. But before we get to that, we have Sam Wagman joining the show tonight, drafting with us. A huge thank you to Sam for coming on. If you follow us or follow our show, you probably already know who Sam is. But just in case you don't, make sure you give him a follow. His content is always great. You'll probably make some more money as long as you're following Sam. Sam, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thank you guys for having me. It's always a good night when I get to come on and talk shop, talk some golf. You know, it's I get this whole 6 months between when football season ends and football season starts to just focus completely on golf. And that is probably one of my favorite things in the world to do. So to be able to come on and talk shop with you guys, some DFS, some betting, always a good time.
Well, we're excited to have you on, and we're always going to get more winners if Sam is giving us some content. So hopefully we hit some winners this week and stack our bank accounts before we head into the final major of the year next week. Spence, you came off a pretty big week. You won the draft. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. We were talking about this a little bit before the show, Joel. It's been a hotly contested season, it feels like. As everybody knows, we've changed up the scoring a little bit this year. We've changed up the show ever so slightly, and we now have tracking. That's something that if you hit the description of the show, you can track along. No pressure, Sam. This will be documented for the rest of time here. But as I was telling you, the guests have not necessarily been doing all that well lately on it, but there's a score table on there. You can see where everybody is. I finally took the lead back from the audience. We'll see if I can hold it. I did give myself the number one pick as a little bit of a spoiler there. No promises on where I'm going to go. People may have a guess, but I can't promise that's going to be the route.
I was surprised because I thought this was a week where the number one pick probably wasn't my preferred spot. So I'm curious to see where that lands. Also, a lot of regulars in the chat tonight. Blind Beauty, Andrew, Jeff, David Steele, welcome to the show. We're drafting tonight. We're excited to have you guys on. Andrew, yes, Joe Flacco's elite. You know why he's elite? Because Joe Flacco and I went to college together, and everyone who graduated the University of Delaware at that time is elite. So it perfectly makes sense.
Were you guys in the same graduating class?
No, he's a little bit older than me. But I got to watch him play for 2 awesome years at Delaware, so that was cool.
There you go.
Courtney, welcome back. I will ask, will one of the audience members volunteer to be the audience captain tonight? Whoever is audience captain does a huge job each week, helps us keep the show moving, making sure the audience team drafts well and can afford their lineup. So you guys let me know. Maybe it's Courtney, maybe it's Andrew. You guys typically step up, but you guys are typically regulars. Blind Beauty, if you want to take it, let me know. Before we get into that, Spence, we'd love to hear from you. What are you looking for on the course this week?
Yeah, like it's always difficult, obviously, when we go over to Europe. We can extract numbers from the DP World Tour or any of those locations, but there's always this data pulling issue for everyone just because of the flawed connection between the two tours and the way that they run their stats. I'm very PGA Tour heavy and everything, so that always gives me a little bit of concern when I put together a model. But when you look at this course, Tom Doak designed the Renaissance Club in 2008. You get tricky green complexes that come into effect on most of these massively oversized locations. That's a quirk that Doak implements quite frequently. We talk about that on the show. It feels like a few times a year. But really the big difference of this venue is that fescue texture that you get of the greens on this particular surface, because it makes everything much more challenging. There's this stagnant feel that players will experience on their putt. My model picked up on that trend by trying to pinpoint what I called a 3-step process this week. I looked at length. I looked on putting at similar green complexes that are going to be, they're very bumpy. It's, fescue and on this particular surface, like I looked at POA greens for that reason. That's one of the putting surfaces that I looked at. I also just looked at Open Championship and results overseas for that sort of an example to begin with. And then I also looked for proximity from 150 plus yards. Just over 57% of the shots are going to come from that range. So, all of that data sounds great. That's going to help to tell a little bit of the story if you're trying to put together numbers. But at the end of the day, and it's something that we talk about quite frequently on this show, I am not necessarily a weather guy. I'm not necessarily the one that beats on the drum telling everybody to look at weather, look at weather, look at weather. But when you get over to Europe, there's no way around it. There are weather edges that come into play. We've seen this course play as easy as Bernd Wiesberger when he won it in 2019 at 22 under. It's been as hard as when Xander won it 3 years ago at 7 under par. I do not see that weather currently in the forecast right now. Things can flip very quickly and move in the other direction. So for DFS purposes, we're probably going 24 hours too soon before we should be locking in some of these decisions. But just keep an eye on that weather, because that would be the big game changer here if something is going to change.
All right, there you have it. How about you, Sam? Anything to add?
Well, my favorite thing when we come to Europe, like Spencer said, is the green complexes here. We have those fescue greens, and these greens are already big. They're, around 7,000 square feet average. And the fescue greens are just going to make those greens almost double in size because the ball moves half as fast. So not only do these guys they're not able to rely on getting rollout like they are stateside, but they have to be a little bit more pinpoint with their iron. So, approach plays in, if not, more than it ever does on any other course. This is probably one of the ones where I'm pretty much solely not taking anyone that is not, getting strokes on approach lately. For me, that's a huge thing for me. And then, like Spencer said, the weather is going to be huge. So if we can find any weather edges that we possibly can, it doesn't look too bad out there. Should probably see something in, mid to high teens for this week, kind of similar to last year.
Boom. All right, there you have it. Make sure you listen to that back. Understand the course breakdown. That's how you find an edge. Understand the type of golfer that should be able to find success on the course this week. Audience, Andrew, the highlight of your week is this show. We appreciate you. You guys, you particular, Courtney, Albert, Zach Jeffers is back. It's been a minute since Zach's been here. Zach, we've missed you. I don't know where you've been, but we're glad you're back drafting with the squad. You guys are what makes this show work. You're the engine that drives this show. We're super appreciative of you guys every week coming on here and letting us do what we do, having fun, talking about the show, and, of course, making some money like we do every single week. Now, we have a draft tonight. We're going to have some fun, like we always do, drafting 4 teams. In case you are new to the show tonight, a quick refresher. We're doing a snake-style draft, similar than you would do to any fantasy football-style draft. We have a 4-man. Spencer, because he won last week, he picked the order, so he's going to go first. Sam will go second. I will go third. Team audience, you will go fourth. So you'll get 2 at the turn. You'll have the 4th pick and then the 5th pick, and then we'll go back around again. The big caveat here is you do need to stay within your DraftKings salary. So what that means is you can't just take all the best golfers. You do need to make sure you can actually afford your lineup and play it in DraftKings. So look at salary as you go. If you want to draft along, make sure you sign in on YouTube. Get in the chat. When it's the audience's turn, anyone can nominate a golfer. So if you want somebody, just put them in the chat, say that's what you want. As soon as that person is seconded, meaning a second person says the same golfer's name, that is the audience's pick. Courtney tonight's going to captain Team Audience, so he will lock in the pick as he sees them come in. But feel free to participate. Get in there. Let us know which golfers you guys want to draft when the audience is up. All right, with the first pick, Spence, you're on the clock.
So, Joel, I'm going to spend more than 5 seconds on this. A lot of times when we do the 101 here, can be a 5-second discussion. We move on. It's typically in these tournaments, it feels like you and I, when we're in the spot, we usually take Scotty Scheffler. We move on to the next pick. The reason why I'm going to spend a little bit longer this week is one of the things that I've seen that has been floating out with whether it's people that are more public, Twitter, sharp people, like there are a lot of sentiments that are going through that this might be one of those weeks where you want to be flatter with your build. Maybe start in the 9,000s, maybe start with a Rory, maybe start even and have like a bunch of $8,000 golfers that come into the mix. And I certainly think that's something that's possible and something that is attainable, and kind of like all the way that the lineups look by doing that. But if you're telling me, and I give this answer to say I am going to take Scotty Scheffler here, if you are telling me that there is going to be at least somewhat of a reduction in ownership on Scotty, I understand. I see about 30%, by the way, which that's kind of pales in comparison to some of the 50% numbers we were getting there for a while. But if you're telling me on Scotty specifically that people are off of him because, one, it's easier to build in other places. Two, if they are going to the top, they seem to be equally as inclined to go to Rory. And three, if you're telling me that the public is lower on Scotty because he hasn't necessarily shown that same high-end production overseas as he has on the PGA Tour, if that's going to suppress ownership even ever so slightly, I am going to go Scotty here. I do think it makes builds a little gross, and it's something that I'm going to have to figure out how do I maneuver through in this thing, because as everybody knows, you pick one name, you can't pick the name again. So when those options go off the board, it'll become more difficult. But there are options in the 9,000s that I considered. And as those names get picked, I'll tell you that those were names I was considering. But for the sake of this show at the 101, I will take Scotty Scheffler.
Scotty in Scotland? Kind of like Scotty in Scotland. That's got a nice ring to it. What about you, Sam? Any reason not to play Scotty Scheffler this week?
I don't think there's truly any reason not to play him. We've seen Scotty kind of go back and forth on this tournament. He didn't play it last year. He did play it in 2023. He was third, or he was third here in 2023. So, this is not a tournament that Scotty has never played before, and it's not somewhere that we have no data on Scotty. So, from a history standpoint, I think this is a place where Scotty's accuracy off the tee is going to be really good. He's, average to above average in distance. You want to be a little bit longer here because, again, those slower fairways, a little less rollout here, which is going to benefit a lot of the longer drivers. But Scotty's accuracy off the tee is going to help him avoid that fescue. It's going to help him avoid those pop bunkers. And what did I just say? You want the guys who can really dial in on their approach game here. So Scotty's going to be able to be very, very pinpoint here. He can put up birdies with the best of them. He can really go low when he needs to. And he's just playing as well as he has after, kind of the sluggish start to the year. So I think this is fine. I can understand if you want to have a little bit of a flatter build here, maybe start in the, the high 9,000s with a guy like Morikawa, or even go a little bit higher to Rory. But I don't think there's any reason not to go Scotty here.
I agree. The only thing I'll add to that is, in the way this field is set up, you can still build a very competitive lineup with Scotty at 1,300 and be pretty balanced in the low 7K range and not have to dip too low to make that work. So you can still make this work with Scotty, even though the price tag's high. The rest of the pricing with the other golfers make it, manageable. All right, Sam, with your first pick on King of the Draft, where are you going?
Yeah. I'm gonna go Rory here. It's not a surprising pick. This is the tournament that Rory loves, and this is the place where we've seen arguably one of Rory's most famous shots. Obviously, the shot that he hit here in 2023 in the winds with the 2-iron. From 200 yards out, everyone saw it. This is just a place that fits Rory's game really well. You can hit it through the wind. He can hit it under the wind. He hits it low. He hits it far. He can be really straight and accurate with the driver. He's kind of fixed that wedge problem that had him overspinning these balls back. And I think his mindset has shifted a little bit back to where he's in a little bit more of a healthy mind space. Hopefully after the last couple months, with him being, uncharacteristically standoffish with the media. Nobody knows what's going on with that. Nobody can see what's going on in the mind of Rory McIlroy except Rory himself. But I do think him taking a little bit of time off and then coming over the pond here to a place where he has historically played very, very well. He's probably got his mind firmly set on this tournament and Portrush. And I think he's going to play extremely well in both these tournaments. Because simply, I think this is Rory's tournament to lose. And I think that almost every single year that we come here these days, because he has played so well here, there's just no reason not to pick him and not to think that he will bounce back to the form that we've come to expect from him here. So it's a pretty cheap out answer. There's no real reason not to take him other than, of his struggles earlier this year. But I'm going to look past all of that, and I think he's going to play very well this week.
Well, one quick question for you. If you had the first pick, would you have taken Rory over Scotty?
I don't think I would have.
No.
I think having the floor that Scotty gives you is a lot higher than the floor that Rory gives you. They have pretty much the same ceiling. Both of them, I think if you were to poll 100 people, 75 of them would give you either Rory or Scotty. Probably 40-30 in favor of Scotty. I don't see any reason why someone who has a top 2 pick would leave without one of the two of them.
It makes sense. I get it. All right. All right. I got one here. I am between two guys. I'm kind of deciding which one I think the audience won't take. I'm being strategic. I'm going to start off. I'm going to go with my gut here, and I'm going to take Robert McIntyre with the first pick. And now, I will say, at first, you might look at him and say he looks like he's probably a little overpriced. And I would probably agree. I don't love that he's in the 9. I probably would have preferred him in the mid to low 8K range. But for a guy who loves link style golf, who's going out to play in a country where he's going to be comfortable, who's playing probably the best golf season of his life, like this is a spot for him to rise. I think this is a spot for him to really show up. And let's not forget the fact that he won the tournament last year and got second the year before. So he likes the course. He can play well here. I'm going to bet Robert McIntyre in the form that he's in right now. Playing the best golf of his life, heading into a tournament that that he likes. Do I think he's going to win? I don't. But do I think he can get you a top 10? Yes. And at this price, if I can get a bunch of top 10s around him or top 20s, that will be good enough. So that's where I'm starting. Audience, you are on the clock and a bunch of nominations flying in. Audience, great job getting those nominations in.
Love it.
Courtney, let us know which one gets locked in as we wait. I'll go back to you here, Spence. What are you targeting, or will you be playing Robert McIntyre this week?
It looks like, by the way, the picks just to get this in will be Hovland and Fleetwood for the audience. So we'll discuss them in a second. But here's the thing I'll say about Robert McIntyre. And I kind of talked about it as I gave the Scotty Scheffler pick, to where if I did not start with Scotty Scheffler here, a lot of the optimal builds, it's hard to fit Scotty and McIntyre both into it. It makes it a little bit trickier. Don't think it's an impossible task. There's a lot of ways that you can do it. I actually thought Robert McIntyre was the 4th highest win equity candidate on this board. So at $9,100, I would say for DFS purposes, he's probably one of the best values you're going to find on the board. And I understand that's a $9,000 golfer and of a pedigree. I understand he just won this tournament last year, but you don't necessarily think of Robert McIntyre as a $9,000 plus golfer. But I think for link style golf at this specific course, that's exactly what he is. And just to touch on the Rory McIlroy pick very quickly, I saw Mark Green talk about it, that he thinks the winning score is going to get to 20 under par or higher. I'm in agreement with him on that. I think this is going to be very easy this year. And on a very easy course, if you look at Rory McIlroy, he has never won a golf tournament in single digits under par. Every single time he wins in fairness, and I've said this about Rory before, he's won at 13 under when the rest of the field's at like 2 under. But so, I mean, take that with a grain of salt there. But this is a very ideal course for Rory. And it's kind of the argument that I have been making in some of my Rotoballer articles as the space is pushing. And Joel, you don't have a decision there. And I think McIntyre probably should have been the 3rd name off the board. But in a space that's pushing towards wanting to start with the Fleetwoods and the McIntyres of the world, you have to realize Scotty and Rory are still the 2 favorites for a reason. And I do think that Sam and I, by going with them, they're going to, at the bare minimum of that answer, provide unique lineups because we're going to have to get different with it. But it's going to be a unique outlook to see what the 2 of us do, what you're going to do with your lineup, and now with the audience starting Tommy Fleetwood and Victor Hovland, how they're going to close it off.
It's a good point. It's a unique way to see different ways to build lineups this week for DFS, right? Different approaches to roster construction. Audience, great job locking in the turn. You got Tommy and Victor Hovland off the board. I mean, there's no secret. I mean, Tommy Fleetwood's going to be popular this week. That's who I was going to take with my second pick. I'm going to have to go pivot here. I think these are both solid picks. I think what's interesting about them is they're both, even in this field, I thought, priced a little high. I thought, a couple weeks ago, they were both in the 8K range, and now we're getting them here. At least Hovland, I think Tommy's been in the 9K range for a while now. And obviously coming across the pond, Tommy makes a lot of sense. Sam, we'd love to get your take. Are you interested in Victor Hovland and Tommy Fleetwood this week?
I want to know that Victor is healthy. First of all, we saw him withdraw with the neck a few weeks ago. I also want to know that Fleetwood is just mentally okay before I invest any money into him. He's played his best golf across the pond. I think we can all agree on that. He's got, I think, 7 wins overseas now, and I would love to take him here. I don't know if I want to see him play well here before I potentially back him at the Open next week. I do think this is a very good course setup for him, but I actually think he's a guy that'll play his best golf when he doesn't have to score as much and he can kind of just rely on his approach game and kind of just level-headedness. He doesn't pour in birdies at a high rate. He has some struggles with the putter sometimes. He can be a little bit, back and forth. So would I have taken him right there? Probably not. I think I would have taken Victor there because I see the ceiling that Victor offers. I don't see the same ceiling with Tommy. Ooh. I see the floor. I don't see the ceiling, and I think he's a little bit overpriced.
Boom. All right. There you have it. Spence, how about you? Do you agree or are you seeing it differently?
I like both of them. I do want to get to Andrew's question, though. You have been the king. I have tried to trade with Joel, guys, for a million times on the show. Joel is a tough nut to crack to get him to.
Is there trading here?
I mean, the rules, we change the rules as it goes. You can trade at any point that you have an offer. But Joel, what are your thoughts about Andrew's offer there?
It's a trade I would consider, but I don't want to hear the audience slack for when I veto something and they'll lose their mind. So therefore, I'm just going to say no and not deal with all the grief that will come with me making that trade. So rejected.
I am curious on Jeff's comment. Where is Fleetwood in terms of ownership this week, or projection wise?
I see him at 17.5%, which would place him as the 5th highest owned player. There is a unique outlook this week where you have Scotty that's approaching 30. You have Rory above 20. Pretty much all the other names are between this 15 to 20% ownership mark. So he's kind of right in there with the Robert McIntyres, the Matthew Fitzpatricks of the world. All those names seem to be somewhere between 17 to 19. Mm-hmm. I like Fleetwood. The thing is it would feel very fitting, and I don't know if he's going to actually pull it off because I had him a couple weeks ago, did not get across the finish line. I was talking to Sam about that before we started, and I don't bet Fleetwood a lot. Like I think I've probably learned my lesson there. But if Fleetwood is going to win on the PGA Tour, it's very fitting to win over in Europe. Like it's like this half-ass win that he's going to get credit on the PGA Tour, but he still hasn't won inside the United States. So I do think he has heightened win equity from where he usually does. I kind of would double down on Sam's comment with Hovland. It's a really nice course fit for him. I would like to know that he's okay. I would like to hear the words come out of his mouth that he feels okay from his injury. If I get that by Thursday, I would probably be fine putting him into a lineup.
Yeah, I wonder. I don't know if I missed media today or not. I've been a little bit busy. Haven't gotten a chance to check out anything on Golf Channel just yet. I don't know if we've missed player interviews or not, but I will be very interested in Victor's pre-tournament interview for sure. It's always some good watching. You always get to hear him talk existential crises and whether the world is flat around. Whether he hates the swing this week or not. These are all. It's always a good watch for Victor.
You are right. Victor is one of the more entertaining interviews you will find on the PGA Tour. All right, I'll keep this draft moving with my second pick. I'm going to pivot, and I'm going to go with just form right now. I'm drafting strictly on form. I'm going to take a red hot Ryan Fox, another guy who has just been playing really well as of lately. He's another guy who I think at first I looked at him and said, "Ooh, 8,500 might be a little bit overpriced." But I think if you're looking deeper into this field, once you get below 8,500, it really drops off. I think there's some of these guys have to be priced up there because it's just not that load of a field. If you zoom in on Ryan Fox, his ball striking more recently has been excellent. obviously the Travelers, he wasn't very good. He lost 4 strokes at his last tee off, but before that, at the U.S. Open, he won the Canadian Open, gained 7.5 strokes on approach, and he's also been burying putts. I mean, his putter over the last 3 tournaments he's played in has been astronomical. If he can carry some of that momentum over and continue to putt well and strike the ball like he's been, I think you get a really good finish from a top 20, even a top 10 could be in play. Sam, you're up with your segment. We'd love to get your take. Was Ryan Fox on your radar this week?
Fox is always going to be on my radar at a course like this where you have to bomb it long, bomb it straight. He's a little volatile for me, especially at a course like this. You know, the European winds can kind of get anyone. He is Australian, so I think he's a little more used to this weather than some of the other guys in this field who, you know, you wouldn't necessarily, you know, pop into your head as a guy that you would take right off the bat. I do like it. It's a nice out of the box pick for me. But no, it wasn't going to be the direction that I was going to go during this draft. But it's a good thought. I mean, he could be in there for a placement for me, top 30, top 20 type vibe.
All right. Well, you can't get him anyway. He's off the board. You got 7,700 to spend per pick on average. With your second pick, how you following up Rory?
So I'm in between a couple guys here, but I did tell you guys that I was going to go completely out of the box. DFS, not typically my game that I play. So I'm going to take a little bit of an unorthodox build here. And I'm going to target again at the top of the board and take Corey Connors here. You know, when we talk about courses, again, courses like this, I'm going to hammer it home. Off the tee, avoid the fescue, avoid the pop bunkers. You want to be long, but you know, you don't need to be long. There have been some plotters who have won this tournament before. I think Corey Connors is probably one of the best drivers, you know, total driving on the PGA Tour. And I think his game suits perfectly here for me. And I love it here. He has a top 10 here. He has a 19th place finish here. His around the green play might hurt here, but he has been really good with the putter this year at times. He's gaining strokes a lot more often than he has in previous years. And he can do a little bit of putting off the green with some of those tight runoffs up there. So I'm not totally worried about Corey Connors. We've seen a little bit of a step back with him. He does have the wrist issue, has had it, but I think for me, a tournament like this, I want to play for a guy that I know can get into the top 10 with pretty nice ease here. Has a really high floor as well. Doesn't miss many cuts. Has only missed 1 cut this entire season, and has 6 top 10s in there as well. So it's a little bit higher priced than I was looking to go here, but I am sticking to a little bit of the top of the board with Connors.
In terms of value and the guys around him, I think the price is right for Connors. I understand your point because you have Rory, maybe you want to go balance, but I think it's a pretty good price for him. I think he has, you know, he's really safe. Like you said, he's only missed 1 cut. Yeah. I think you have a lot of safety there, but I also think he has some upside. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he gets you a top 10 this week. So
not a ton of win equity. Not a ton of win equity, but he's going to be a really safe guy.
Agreed. Totally agreed. Quick question from Jeff. Is 15% ownership on Fox 2? I actually see it a little bit higher. I think I have it at like 17%. It's high. I agree. It's probably not ideal. But it doesn't mean you can't play him. It just means you got to get different somewhere else. If that's where you're going, you have a couple high ownership players in your lineup. Just make sure not every guy is over 15 or 20%, and I think that will be okay. All right, Spence, would love to hear from you. Are you interested at all in Corey Connors and Ryan Fox? And then you got 2.
To answer Jeff's question, I would say 15% is not too high according to my model. If you like him this week also, I would look at him very heavily next week. I think that's even a better course fit for him potentially than what we get this week. Connors, it comes down to the wrist injury. It's kind of the same answer I gave with Hovland. I'd like to hear from Connors that his wrist feels okay. I saw a week ago that Connors said that he was going to play this event and his wrist was not 100% yet. That would be the only concern I have to. But Sam talked about it when it comes to the driving statistics. He's 6th in my model in expected driving at this course. That includes being inside of the top 10 when you put somebody on a firm fairway. That's something that you get over in Europe where you can hit these low ball flights, balls run forever on these firm greens. And Connors has found massive success in that. And while I agree, you know, look, the upside is always limited with names like Fleetwood and Connors, but for Sam specifically, it's the second name into a bill with Rory McIlroy. Rory McIlroy is the high win equity candidate that he already has. So I don't mind the Corey Connors pick. I would just like to make sure that the wrist is okay.
Yeah.
Boom. All right. There you have it, Spence. Now you got Scotty Scheffler. You got 7,300 per pick on average. Where are you going with your second and third picks?
I hate doing this, Joel, because it's going to be really chalky, the route that I'm about to go. And it's going chalky in a route of, I think if you ask 90% of people who watch golf who one of these names were before the week started, I think 90% of people would have had no idea. I'm going to start here, and I'm going to take Marco Penge at $7,000. Very, very chalky. I understand that. But, and also with this Scotty specific build, there are some concerns here just because I think that that's going to be one of the more popular routes that people are going to want to go. You're going to start with Scotty. You're going to try to find that $7,000 golfer that opens up a little bit of salary for you. Penge kind of checks a lot of those boxes. He just won on the DP World Tour a couple starts ago, which, by the way, which is the interesting fact about it, he came back from a suspension. I don't know if people know this. He was gambling on golf tournaments, got himself suspended. So near and dear to my heart with this pick of somebody that pulls a Pete Rose on their tour and gets himself suspended, which is, we see that happening right now with the NBA, which seems to be running rampant over there. But I'm going to take Penge. I understand with this pick, it looks terrible from it. And I'm going to have to find a way to get different. Trust me, I have something up my sleeve for later on. I actually have a couple things to make this different. The other pick I'm going to make here is I'm going to go once again down into the $7,000 section, and I'm going to take Jesper Svensson. I've talked a lot in my articles this week that two of the things that I'm looking at heavily is driving distance and just the ability to spike with some of your scoreable intangibles, whether that comes from the putter or it comes from different things. I don't see a ton of win in the forecast, but Svensson is a name that when you have had these bumpier greens with wind in the surface, he has putted better than his baseline projection is in a lot of these spots. So 20th in my model when taking that driver plus putter expectation for this course, 19th in my model when running a very basic grade that just took birdie or better percentage and bogey avoidance. It weighed birdie or better a little bit more heavily this week, just because I do agree with Mark from earlier. This is probably going to get the 20 under par, but this is one of those names. I only see him at sub 5%. He's very optimal alongside a Scotty Scheffler. And like I said, even with the Penge pick, I have ways to try to get different later on.
Boom. All right. Penge off the board. Sam, would love to get your take. Were you interested in Marco Penge this week?
I'm not a huge DP World Tour guy. I don't follow a ton of these guys. So the only thing I know about Penge is that he's the longest hitter on the tour. I did not know about the gambling thing. That also makes him near and dear to my heart as well. Not someone who was on the radar for me, but definitely an interesting pick. Again, guys that can get long here. These guys can be, very, very nice and sneaky, getting into the top half of these drafts.
Ooh, all right. Off the board, Jesper Svensson as well. I won't torture you with DP World Tour takes on some of these guys, but I will tell you, you got Rory and Corey Connors. You have 7,400 per pick to spend. Who are you looking at with your third pick?
So I'm going to follow Spencer down into the $7,000 range. I'm going to take who I believe is probably one of the chalkier plays, only because I've heard his name a ton. It's Victor Perez down at 7,200. Look, Spencer just talked about, some of these guys that get on these, slower, bumpier greens and really do well at putting on them. Victor Perez is one of the best slow green putters in golf. He can get volatile at times. He has a decently high ceiling. We've seen him play really well, at times this season. But, he did have a T9 at the RBC Canadian Open a couple of weeks ago. And he was 10th here last year. He was 35th the year before. He was 14th in 2020. We've seen him play really well. And then one of my favorite things is comp course history. If you go back and look at 2024, Hamilton Golf Club, which hosted the RBC Canadian Open in 24, you have a lot of crossover with the Renaissance Club here. Not to mention Rory, but Victor Perez finished third at Hamilton in 2024. That's a really good comp course. Sorry, not Rory. When McIntyre won the RBC last year. And I really think that Perez is another name that could really kind of spike, can get up there. This is the guy that I picked to win this week. I do think he's going to have a really good week here.
I like that pick a lot. I'm actually regretting I didn't take him. He's also been playing really well, to your point. If you look at some of his more recent results, he's been up there. Should be a course that suits him. Spence, would love to get your take. Are you playing Victor Perez this week?
One of the names I was considering down in that section, top 30 for me for safety ratings, inside of the top 45 in pretty much any of the key areas where I was trying to highlight this week. Don't know if I would have. We'll leave it at that. I like Victor Perez. We'll leave it at that for now.
All right. Victor Perez off the board. I'm going to take my value pick here. There's a few guys I like with my last pick that I can go between. So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to take Lee Hodges off the board. Lee Hodges is a guy we saw earlier this year spike. He was playing some really good golf. If you look back toward the end of last year, beginning of this year, then he went a little bit of run, I would say beginning of Q2 around April, where he missed a few cuts. But it looks to be coming back around. He gave you a top 10 at the Canadian Open beginning of June. He was 34th at the Rocket Mortgage, but he was striking the ball well. He gained 8 strokes on approach at the John Deere and really didn't do anything else that well and still gave you a 21st. I think he puts his game together this week at only 7,100, the way he's striking the ball, and get you another good result. I think he's safer than he has upside. I don't think he's going to go out there and win this week, but I do think Lee Hodges gets you a top 30 or top 20, which is enough at 7,100. How about you, Sam? Is Lee Hodges on your radar?
Yeah, I do. I love Lee Hodges. He's one of my favorite golfers this year. This is the terrific pick. I don't have much more to say on it, but I love the pick. You guys covered everything for me.
I love it.
Very quickly, Joel. That was probably the name I was going to take. That's what I was trying to do, and didn't have to go very long before you spoiled what my next pick was going to be.
Well, I love that I got a steal out of it too. So not only did I get him, but I also took a pick away from you, made your team a little worse. That always feels good. And the audience is doing a great job getting their nominations in. I know there's a bunch of them in there. Oh, Courtney, thank you for captaining.
Fitz and Dietrich.
Great job. Fitz and Dietrich off the board. That's an interesting one. It's an interesting turn here. Dietrich is a guy I looked too early. I do think he's overpriced. Dietrich is a guy who, he might show up at a undermanned tournament, one of these JV tournaments. This is a fuller field at 7,800. I think there's plenty of guys that are equal to Dietrich that you can get for $1,000 less, $600 less, if not better than him. So I don't love Dietrich this week myself personally, but I've been wrong before. Spence, would love to get your take. Are you interested in Dietrich or Fitzpatrick this week?
I don't hate Dietrich as much as you do. I think though what I would say about it is there are a lot of players for me. Like I'll give a couple here. I would rather just mention names, I guess, than to keep them close to the vest on these spots. But like an option like Maverick McNeely. Like I would rather play Maverick McNeely. You look at what he's done at Pebble Beach and some of those links ties of American golf there. I think McNeely makes a ton of sense. I think Max Grazerman makes a ton of sense. There's a handful of other ones that I would go towards. Dietrich's 21st overall in my model. He's a value at the price. I think it's fine. He's going to be popular though because of some of the course history that we've seen, and I can't necessarily even push massively against that answer. But I would rather have a McNeely or a Grazerman if push came to shove.
Interesting. McNeely was someone I was considering there with my last pick. So we are aligned on that. How about you, Sam? Are you interested at all in Thomas Dietrich or Matthew Fitzpatrick?
Dietrich's driver scares me. I think he's way too volatile in where his form can be. And I don't know what to think about Fitzpatrick. He's the most tipped guy this week on the betting side of things. He's very commonly fallen prone to people overrating him in spots. I think right now, he's had a few a couple weeks where he's shown like he's kind of getting back to the form that we're a little used to seeing from him over the past few years after kind of a stretch of being really bad. Looks like he kind of switched some things up with his swing a little bit. And it just looks like he's going to fall flat for some odd reason. Something's rubbing me the wrong way about this week. So I'm off Fitzpatrick personally. Dietrich, I could go a little bit either way on, but I'm with Spencer here. I'd rather have a guy like McNeely or even Grazerman. Those are two guys I heavily consider. I think McNeely is one of my, again, another outright pick for me. He's a guy who loves playing close to the ocean. He basically said, I love playing, anytime I can see the ocean, I play well. So this is the type of course that he loves to play on. And I think it's probably a better pick in that, $75,000 to $8,000 range.
Cool. All right. Well, for my next pick here, I'm going to stick with my form strategy. Right? I'm going to take another guy who's just hitting the ball really well, and that's Harry Hall. And if you take a deeper dive into Harry Hall's metrics, other than off the tee, he is striping the ball in the approach. He's around the green game, which maybe not as priority here, has been excellent, and he is sinking putts left and right. If he's got that hot putter here this week, the way he's striking the ball, I think Harry Hall can give you another really good result. I think Harry Hall is upside, top 10 upside, and I also think he's safe. I think you could get a made cut out of him. Other than the top of the field, I think he's, after the first, let's call it 8 to 9 guys, I think he's as good as anyone in this field. At 8,400, if you're not going to be playing Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, going with a balanced build, I think Harry Hall makes a lot of sense in a balanced approach. Sam, I saw you made a little bit of a face. Was it a good face? Were you interested in him or not so much?
I was interested in Harry Hall. He unfortunately doesn't make a lot of sense with my build. He's a little bit expensive for what I'm trying to build here, but it's a great pick because I think his driver putter strategy, you can't bomb and gouge it here, but if you're long with the driver and you can putt the lights out of the ball, I think this is a course that suits you really well. And I love Harry Hall for that reason. I know there's a few other golf media guys who have come in really heavily on him. I know that John Hauselbauer is a huge fan of him this week as well. So, and he's from this area. This is a course that he probably grew up playing on a little bit here. So I think this is a great spot for him. It wouldn't be shocking to me if he's in that top 15 on Sunday at all.
I love that. I love it. Well, again, I feel great about the steal. You can't take him on your team, but you got 7,500 per pick left. Where are you going with your fourth pick?
I'm going to go a little bit lower here again. I'm going to go to a guy that does make his home on the DP World Tour and has made every single cut this year. That's Haotong Li. A guy that really can drive it well off the tee. Is a little bit of a more volatile character when we get up there, but he's a fun golfer to watch. He can really stripe it with the irons. He can putt really well, and he's in some good form. The last few tournaments, not too great. You got a T27, a T38, and a T60, but before that, T4, a T2, a T4, a T9, a T16, and a win all in a span of 8 weeks. So I really like Haotong Li. This is probably one of my close friends' favorite golfers in the world. He loves his Asians and Koreans. Haotong Li is a name that he will love to hear when I show him this broadcast as well, and it really helps that he's in some good form right now and has played well at this tournament in the past. So
Haotong Li off the board. Spence, we'd love to hear from you. Is Haotong Li someone that was in your player pool for this week?
One of the biggest bets I ever had is I took Haotong Li a handful of years ago during match play when he was playing a little bit more on the PGA Tour. And I think he lost either in the round of 16 or the round of 8 with it. But I got him at an egregious price that I was trying to roll that over into riches with it, and it didn't end up coming across the finish line. But I always like Haotong Li in these tournaments, and Sam talked about it. There's been safety built into the profile that we maybe haven't had in years past, and if that's the case, I'm always willing to be signed up for a Haotong Li pick.
Boom. Endorsed. Han Lee off the board. Spence,
Love
you
it.
got two here. You found two value picks to follow up Scotty Scheffler. Where are you going with your fourth and fifth?
So this is where I'm gonna get different, because I have not seen anybody that's wanted to go in this direction of a Scotty Scheffler build, like, and then another high price player that is not the Robert McIntyres, Tommy Fleetwoods of these $8,000 golfers. I'm gonna go with the $9,000 ish name in this range, and I'm gonna go with the name that I am actually going to sit here and say I think is gonna win this golf tournament. I have not heard anybody say that at this point. I am going to take Justin Thomas with this pick. And I know that that is massively outside of the box from what everybody is going to be thinking here, but we want to talk about easy scoring courses. Just look at what Justin Thomas has done at this venue. It's a bunch of missed cuts. It's a bunch of finishes outside the top 60. The two times it played the easiest that we've seen it play, I want to say it was a T8 and a T9, a T7 and a T8. Two top 10 finishes, though, is the point to that. And anytime that you can get one of these weighted scoring tests, that he's going to be able to, one, use that low stinger off the tee. He's going to get a bunch of rollout here. Top 10 of my model when you look at driving in that fashion. We know that the driver has been sloppy this year. That might be a potential help for him. And then the putter is really what caught my eye. We don't think of Justin Thomas as some great putter. He's gained in over 10 straight tournaments with the flat stick. So I feel like we're about to sit on something here to where he's about to explode again. We don't normally think that to be the answer in Europe. We know he struggled with link style golf in the past. I'm going to go outside of the box and go Justin Thomas here. And then for my second pick in this range, I mean, I think I'm already probably different by going with Justin Thomas. It's I guess I'll just be open and honest with this. I'm deciding between Chris Gotterup and Kevin Yu. These are two names that have been hot over the last little bit. I will take Kevin Yu here just because of his ball striking ability. Kind of similar answers with Thomas when you look at the expected scoring, a top 10 expected scorer inside of my model. I think Gotterup's going to probably be one of the most popular picks. That's kind of being spurned on a little bit by, yes, the recent form, but also Data Golf. When Data Golf starts putting their stamp of approval on things, you see the ownership for DFS go crazy. So I don't see a massive difference between Gotterup and Kevin Yu. I actually have Kevin Yu a little bit better in my model to begin with on it. So if you can tell me it's like 10% ownership versus 4 or 5% ownership, I'll hope that Kevin Yu can continue to ride this little run that he's on.
I like the Yu pick. If you remember, I was on Yu earlier in the year for a few tournaments. He had a little cold. I think he's coming back or seeing form again at 7,100. Yu's a guy I'm on. I would have taken Yu over Gotterup. Gotterup's been good. His ball striking's there, but I worry about his putter. Can he make enough putts to really compete and have the upside? Obviously, he can strike the ball well enough, but it's the putter that gives me pause. Sam, would love to get your take. Are you interested in Justin Thomas or Kevin Yu this week?
Justin Thomas he scares me. He just frightens me. That price point. I honestly thought you were going to go with Colin Morikawa. The way you were laying it out. That price point combined with, the volatility we've seen the last few weeks from him. I thought he was going to turn a corner after the RBC Heritage, and he didn't. That was going to set the tone for the rest of the season for me when it came to Thomas in terms of, what he was comfortable, putting up on a week-to-week basis, where he was going to go from there. And just, I haven't seen it with the form there. And I haven't seen it, I haven't seen it to where I'm comfortable taking him. I understand it from your build that you kind of have to get one more, high ceiling guy in there that can also give you a little bit below 4, which works because you have Scotty and you have some of these, deeper drivers. But I don't know. I don't know if I would have gone Thomas in that spot. I do love Kevin Yu, approach wizard, can get hot with the putter when he needs to. If it all works out from him from a driving standpoint, it's a really nice value pick.
Ooh, all right, there you have it. Sam, you got your fifth here. You took your 2 value picks on your last 2. Where are you going from here?
I'm going to stay in the $7,000 range, and I'm going to go with probably my favorite pick this week in Rasmus Njergaard Peterson, which is honestly, I think is a slam dunk pick. I'm honestly shocked that he's on the board this late. I think he's a little bit overpriced. I would have liked to see him low 7,000 instead of mid 7,000s. But 7,600, it's a nice price. He's got 2 great finishes, 14th in the BMW last week, and then a few weeks before, 12th at the U.S. Open. Plus, you got a handful of top 4 finishes earlier in the year: Puerto Rico, Commercial Bank in Qatar, at the Hainan Classic. So this is a guy who's played really well in his debut season, playing as a full-time DP / PGA Tour member. And I think he's played really well. Obviously, hasn't played here before, but his game sets up really well here. He's really long off the tee, 18th in total driving. And then he's second in this field with over one and a quarter strokes gained on approach his last 24 rounds, almost 2 strokes gained ball striking in his last 24. So this is a really good spot for him. The putter can get hot when it needs to be, and he's played really well in the wind. If that pops up here, he ranks 11th in this field in strokes gained tee to green in windy conditions. So this is a really good spot for me to take Peterson here. I'll have a placement on him. This is a guy I really like this week.
Peterson off the board. I agree. He seems like he's going to gather. I'm surprised he lasted this long. He seems like a popular play this league. Spence, would love to get your take. Is he going to be in your player pool?
The only reason why he wouldn't be is just because of ownership. I think he's going to be extremely popular. When you look at the betting market, and these are 2 names that are also extremely popular. We've talked about Max Grazerman. We've talked about Rasmus Højgaard. He's a pretty substantial favorite against Grazerman and is a favorite against Højgaard. So we see money pushing in his direction. And like we've talked about, those are 3 names that are going to be 13% plus probably in the ownership that we're getting with them. So even though it does feel like the public's picking all 3, the sharp money is moving more towards the Rasmus Peterson route with it. It just comes down to ownership at the end of the day.
All right. Ownership it is. I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to be able to take both, so I'm going to lay out there the 2 guys I'm deciding between. I'd love to get maybe your take on it before I make my pick. I'm deciding here between Ludwig and Sepp Straka. Now, obviously, Sepp Straka's putter seems to be lost the last 2 weeks. Other than that, he's still really striking the ball well. And then Ludwig is hitting the ball well. He just isn't really getting good results currently. But we know what the upside is when Ludwig is playing well. He's one of the best golfers on tour. Sam, I'll ask you, if it was your pick here between those 2, who would you take?
I just want to pull up Ludwig's last couple weeks real quick. I mean, it's been tough to watch. I will say that he seems to have completely lost the driver. And his putting has been near atrocious. So, I don't really know what's going on with him. I don't know if it's, a mental thing. He just hit a wall in his sophomore year. That's possibly what it was after, because it all seemed like it was going well, after he was, crushing at the Farmers for a round and then withdrew with, the stomach virus and then came back to win the Genesis. And then he kind of just fell apart. And it's been a really weird summer for him, outside of the Masters. So I'm not really sure, at the same time, I think Straka is an auto fade for me. He doesn't hit the ball that far. He's accurate with it, but he can also, be a little bit spray around there for me. I think I would probably go Ludwig here, but I would like to find a workaround around both of them. I talked about Colin earlier. If you were asking me to pick someone in that range, it would probably be Morikawa out of those guys. But I think Ludwig would be the pick that I would go between him and Straka.
I'll be honest, I was leaning Straka up until right before I picked. I asked you, and I am going to take Ludwig. I just think when he puts it all together, Ludwig has the most upside. And if he gets a good week, if he finds some momentum, Ludwig can go out and win this tournament. I guess Straka could too, but Ludwig is a guy who at 9,400 is an elite talent, right? After Scheffler and Rory, he's up there with everyone else in the field. So I think Ludwig, I think there's a spot here where, he can put it back together. And he hasn't been awful, right? Like, he has been bad for his standards, but compared to everyone else, he's still been pretty competitive. And I think it's just, one of those weeks where you find something gets hot, you get some momentum, and then he's back. And so I'm hoping that that's what we get from Ludwig this week at 9,400.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sam.
I think one more thing that I want to put in there too is in a tournament like this where you probably are going to have to score some birdies. I would rather have a guy like Ludwig who has, a much easier route to putting the ball closer to the hole than I think Straka does. I would rather in a tournament where you have to probably get to 20 under to win. I think I would rather have Ludwig than Straka.
Boom. Well, there you have it. That answer has been made. Audience, great job getting those nominations in. As we wait for those picks to finalize, we'll go back to you, Spence. Who would you have taken between the two, Ludwig or Straka?
I don't know, Joel. I don't know if I have the balls to take Straka from what we've seen with him on his recent form. And if you look at what his ownership is in my model, I just saw this as I was giving this answer. It's 6.66%. Doesn't seem
that's not good.
The side of the devil is not exactly where we want to be going with that. I do think that there's massive upside to be found with him. It's just the form is so bad at this point. I kind of lean, though, in the direction of what Sam said, to where if there is a workaround spot where we could find a different name, like I honestly might rather just even move down and play Maverick McNeely than both of them.
Yeah. I think that's a great call as well.
Something like that. I don't dislike Oberg. I do think he has a skill set that can find success here, but I would take Oberg between the two just because Straka terrifies me, and for multiple reasons.
I'm also embarrassed. I'm also pretty embarrassed because I built out this draft kind of in my head, as we were starting it out, and it's gone pretty close to how I wanted it to. The only problem is that I thought I had budgeted to have Maverick McNeely as my last pick, and I'm not going to have enough.
I do this every week, Sam. It's a weekly thing.
I'm off by 200. I'm off by 200. And I, 5 minutes ago, I was like, oh, I'm going to be able to get Peterson and Maverick if it works out that way. And all of a sudden, I don't have enough money.
Spence, that was the last week you Spence, the same thing, or 2 weeks ago?
I think I've done it 2 of the last 4 weeks where I've misbudgeted in terrible spots like that, to where I couldn't afford Fleetwood in one of them. I couldn't afford Burns. Like, those are tournaments that they almost won. So I don't know if that's a sign that if none of us end up with McNeely here, maybe he ends up being the winner. For Sam's outright betting,
good.
that would be a very good answer. But no, I really like McNeely this week.
Yeah, I do too.
McNeely off the board, or is he off the board? He's not off the board.
No, not off the board. Not off the board. I'm just wish casting that I could have $200 more dollars.
If I took Straka, I was going to take McNeely with my last pick, so he wasn't going to get back to you either way. But I guess I didn't take Straka, so you would have been able to get him here. Audience is locked in. They got Pot Geeter, who might be hurt. So I think there's a concern, but that never stopped me from drafting someone.
Didn't stop me from drafting Corey Connors.
No, it's totally fine. And Reeton off the board. Spence, we'll go to you here. Are you concerned about Potgieter's health?
A little bit. I think even with that lineup in general, now you have 2 liabilities potentially with Hofland and Aldrich. Never a great sign when somebody pulls out in the middle of a tournament. I understand that he blew up on Saturday. A lot of golf after winning a golf tournament, and I've given this answer 10 times on the show. Like to hear what he has to say leading into this, but I mean, the distance answers sound great. We know that he hits the ball further than everybody else if distance does play a factor here, but that health concern is probably a real thing.
All right. Health is a real concern. And then the last, am I saying his name right? Is it Reeton or Reiten?
I'll let you be on your own island there. I'm about to butcher my last pick, and there's only can be one name that I butcher on this show.
All right, well, I'll take the butchering. I'm not sure if we pronounced it right, but he's off the board. Audience has landed him. And I am just, here, while I look up one thing less, we'll go to you, Sam. Will you be playing Potgieter or Reeton this week?
Well, I don't even know who Reeton is, so Potgieter. I'm really showing my my closed-mindedness to the DP World Tour here, because I just do not pay as close attention to it, and I don't see a lot of these lower names because I don't hang out in the DFS world as much. I don't know anything about him. Potgieter, I don't think I would be playing him here anyways. but yeah, I'm really worried about the injury.
All right.
And I think it's just like winter fatigue. I think
Yeah.
I think that's playing a huge role. Like the guy just went all out to win his first tournament 2 weeks ago. I have no idea why he played last week. He didn't need to. So, it's kind of just like burnout for me on Pock Eater.
All right. I'm with you on that. I got my pick locked in here. I just want to check one more thing. There he is. All right. Yeah, I'm still going to take him anyway. Not a long hitter, which could be a concern. But I'm going to take a value play. I have to go to the 7K range. Matteo Manacero.
Oh no!
Was that your pick? Yeah, that feels good. I think I got a few steals from you today, which is nice. Man, listen, he's been playing pretty well. If you even look at what he's done here recently in or I guess in Canada, really, at the Canadian Open, he gave you a top 10. He didn't shoot one round above 70. And his ball striking has been excellent. So if you take a deeper live in the Canadian Open, which was the early June, he gained 9.5 strokes on approach. He gained 2 at the CJ Cup. He's really good around the greens. He's going to have to make some putts this week. I think if he finds a hot putter, he can get you another really good result. I don't really, I don't know if there's winning upside, but he gets you a top 20, top 25 at 7,300. I think he's a pretty safer side pick there with his ball striking. So Manacero off the board. Sam, I'm sorry for the steal. I know you're scrambling to get another pick. I'll give you a minute. We'll go to Spence first. Spence, is Manacero on your radar this week?
So I wrote something for Rotoballer this week where I looked at golfers that were 7,300 or less. I guess for the article, technically, I put it in the $7,200 mark. But when you add it to the $7,300 mark, there were 10 players. I believe there were 10 players. Let me double check real fast. Yeah, 10 players for me that fit a qualifying threshold. So essentially what I was trying to find was positive sharp movement in certain books that I was looking at, crack the top 50 over my overall sheet, and then grade it as a positive value compared to their price in my model. Manacero was one of them. I'll just read all the names at this point that were this deep in the show. Jake Knapp, Jacob Bridgman, Denny McCarthy, Victor Perez, Kevin Yu, Marco Penge, Jesper Svensson, Andrew Novak, Bud Cauley. Those are kind of all the names down there in that 7,300 or less that I'm considering. Unfortunately, when we get to my pick, I can't afford any of those options. And that's kind of just a filibuster here for a second for Sam. That's the problem with what happens when you go Scotty Scheffler and Justin Thomas and you put yourself at 6,600, because from an optimal sense, there's really not much down there that I overly love. And I'm kind of just looking for somebody that I'm hoping that can make a cut. That's the problem with the build, though, if there is one of mine at least. But I'll kick it over to Sam and see if he has anybody at this point.
I don't love this. Joel screwed my entire ending of my draft up here. Really screwed it up for me. I'm in between like 4 different players right now, between Jake Knapp, Nikolai Højgaard, Nick Taylor, and I can afford Siwoo. Yeah, and Siwoo. And I just eliminated Tom Kim. He's the last guy out. But I will kind of want to go like at the top end of the range. You have Jake Knapp for the driving distance. Sneaky good short game. And then you have Siwoo with kind of like the really good form lately. I think 5 of his last 6 top 10s. And then Nick Taylor, who's also in really good form. And I think I'm going to end up going with Nick Taylor here. Doesn't hit the ball long at all. This is an uncomfortably recurring theme in my lineup outside of Rory and Haotong Li. But he's really accurate with it. He's an absolute stick with his irons. He's a very good putter. And I think this is a good spot. He does have a top 20 here a couple of years ago at the Scottish, and obviously played really well at Hamilton, for the RBC. So I think this is a great spot for Nick Taylor. I'm kind of just looking for a top 30, top 20 from him, type of finish. I'm not looking for him to make a run. I don't think he's going to, but I needed a little bit of a safe pick, and Knapp is a little bit too uncomfortably volatile for me.
Yeah, that's fair. I probably would have taken Knapp, but I would have been going for upside. Nick Taylor definitely is the safer pick of the two. I will say, though, I really like your squad. I think your squad might be the one I'd pick to win. I think you drafted a really good team. But Spence, without further ado, with the last pick, how you rounding out this draft?
Well, I can't afford him, so I can't go that route, unfortunately. I really can't afford anybody. We talked at the beginning of this show, and I said it about Marco Penge that 90% plus of people probably didn't know who that was before this week. Maybe I'll give you a name that I did not know that my model seems to like, and I don't even know where we're pulling the data from, and this is going to be my pick. So this is living on the edge very uncomfortably here. I'm going to butcher the name just for anybody out there that does know how it's pronounced. I'm going to take Adrian Sadier at $6,600. I think there's anything to be said when you take a pick at that point. Model likes him, doesn't have distance off the tee from what I can see. But from wherever I'm pulling data in, the data seems to like him this week. So if I'm down in this spot and I'm grasping at straws, if you look at what he's done recently, he won the Italian Open 2 starts ago. A lot of high-end finishes. Hero Indian Open 5th, Porsche Singapore Classic 3rd. Kind of seems to be a boom or bust target, and the model likes him this week. So I'll wrap it up with him.
Interesting.
Who is the pick?
He's lost Sadier.
I don't know who that is.
Just type in SAD for you, man. He's lost on approach 5 straight. And I can't even tell like the 5 before that because it doesn't show data. Like Spencer said, it's really off, but he's hit or miss, like Spencer said, but I see a lot of red. Apart from one gigantic green mark in his putting from the Italian Open, which looks like a gigantic outlier to say the very least. But Godspeed.
All right. Well,
Sadier,
I'm not going to butcher his name.
Okay.
Sadier. Thank you, Jeffers. Off the board. That's a wrap for the draft tonight. Smash the like button. Give us a follow. It goes a long way. We will be crowning a king of the draft this week. Before we get out of here on the draft, I'll start with you, Spencer. Is there anyone you are surprised did not get drafted tonight?
I put a poll up on Twitter asking, just ask me a random question about DFS. What names are you considering? The 3 names that got popped up every single time over and over. And Andrew just mentioned it with Adam Scott. It was Adam Scott, Harry Hall, Ryan Fox. Everybody wanted to know, of those 3 options, which way would you want to go? And we saw the first 2 get taken. Adam Scott was not. I like Adam Scott this week. It's certainly something and somebody who would have made my build if I didn't go this stars and scrubs approach with it. There was a world where if I had McIntyre, Scott, Harry Hall, like all those names would have made a lot of sense for it. It's just couldn't afford them at a certain point, but I do like Adam Scott this week. Was surprised he wasn't taken.
Adam Scott it is. How about you, Sam? Is there anyone you're surprised did not get drafted?
I would probably say Sam Burns. But he's pretty chalky this week. I think Xander, I think the 3 of us, I'm afraid to take Xander. I don't know. I've been overrating Xander the entire season since he came back. I've picked him to win, I think 4 or 5 times. He hasn't come close. I picked him in every major so far. Hasn't come close. And I don't know if he's going to this season. So, while he has that win in his back pocket from a couple of years ago here, this doesn't seem like the time to take him, especially at that price point. And then Burns, who has obviously been really popular, as we talked about pre-show. This kind of feels like a spot where he might just be a little bit overly chalky for the 3 of us, or for the 4 teams here. So I'll be really interested to see what he does as well.
I have a question for you guys before we move on. So let's take Xander, Morikawa, Oberg. I know Oberg was drafted, but Power rank those three based off of price and playability of who you would be most likely to play of those three. We can start with you, Joel, I guess.
My power rankings would be Xander, Ludwig, Morikawa.
Sam?
I would go the exact opposite.
Wow. All right.
I will go, I think this is different than everybody else. I will go Xander, Morikawa, Oberg.
So we're very far apart on that. So that,
Yeah.
I think that's what it will tell you, though. I think the chalk is going to be more at the top of the board. I think as you go down, because we're all so far apart, that's probably where you're going to be different, right? Is if you want to play some of these leverage, high 8K, low 9K type guys, I don't think that will be the popular play this week. So you can build a lineup that, regardless of Oberg, you don't have to put Oberg in your lineup. But if you look at something like mine, where it just doesn't play Scheffler or Rory, it's just a more balanced type of build, I think that will probably be more unique this week than usual.
I like Xander this week. I just want that to be noted on this show. I think that Xander at some point is about to pop again soon. And I don't know if he necessarily wins this event, but I feel like we're about to get some of these classic Xander results.
See, I agree with that. I really do, because I think we had this same existential crisis 2 months ago with Scotty. Will he win again? He's coming off the injury. He looks nothing like he did a year ago. Xander has been the exact same, down to the underwhelming performances the entire way. I don't see the same signs that I saw from Scotty. Like, we at least saw Scotty kind of picking things up, but Xander has the thing that I've seen about Xander is he always starts the week bad this year. It's always a +2, it's a +1, it's a -1 when the rest of the field is at 7 or 8. It's starting off on the wrong foot, and then he'll shoot out of his mind on Friday, and he'll get just enough into contention to where we all think that he can do something, and then he just doesn't. So it's a bit worrisome for me there.
Yeah, listen, it's coming, right? He's not going to be bad forever, but you're right.
It has to be.
It's going to be this week. The last thing I'll leave you guys on is there's 3 guys down here at about the 8K flat that I think are really interesting that didn't go. We mentioned McNeely a lot already. Surprised he didn't go. Harris English, exactly, right there with him, who's playing really well. And JJ Spawn, who's having the best year of his career. He's playing great golf. I thought JJ Spawn was another really good value here at only 8,100 that you could have drafted this week. So keep those guys on your radar when you're building lineups this week. Last thing to leave everyone with, we'll start with you, Spencer. What is your bet of the week?
I mean, I don't have very many wagers at this point. I will go with Taylor Pendrith. I over Tom Kim. I know Tom Kim has been great at this course. I think that it's boosting some of his numbers inside of the betting market. That's kind of a spot that I'm willing to take Tom Kim on. Maybe I'll live to regret it, but my model likes Taylor Pendrith this week. He's one of those names in the upper $7,000 range that seems to be getting a little bit overlooked in some of these spots. So you can throw him into the mix, where I'd probably rather have Pendrith than like Dietrich even. I know we keep going back to this Dietrich where we all keep saying not to play Dietrich. I don't think it's that aggressive to it, but there are a couple of names above Dietrich if you are looking to get contrarian. That would make sense. So Pendrith over Tom Kim. And then just ask you guys the questions. I know we're running late. To answer Andrew's question, Goddard up, make the cut, yes or no?
Yeah, no.
No.
I'll say yes.
All right.
Of course you were. We know you were considering him.
All right, Sam. Well, how about you? Were you betting on Goddard up to not make the cut? And do you have a bet of the week?
No, I will not bet on Goddard up to miss or make the cut. I'm going to go to the winner without market, and I'm going to take Matt McNeely as the winner without Rory, Scotty, Fleetwood, Xander, which is the only winner without market that I have on Hard Rock, because they are a sports book that is pure evil. But at 50 to 1, I'm going to take Maverick McNeely as the winner without there. I could go into the spiel about how I'd rather take him top 20 or top 10, top 30, one of those. But I might as well just shoot for the stars here, since I haven't hit an outright in about 6 weeks. And I need something to be good here. But I just think that he's such a perfect fit. We've touched on it multiple times this show about how good of a fit we all think he is for this course. and this week in particular. It just feels like he's going to have one huge week, and it would make sense to be on a coastal track that can be a little bit easier, like this one, where he can kind of go deep and really grind out some good results here. So I think McNeely to do really well this week. However market you want to bet it, I love McNeely this week.
I am tailing that pick. I love that selection.
I like it too. We're all on McNeely. So McNeely is an endorsed pick for this week. My bet of the week, I'm going to give you it's the same bet. I like this top 30 market this week. I think there's some good value to be found. And I'm going to give you three guys, all three that I drafted. You can get Robert McIntyre at minus 115. It's basically a pick 'em for him to make the top 30. I think it gets you a good result. You also get plus odds on both Harry Hall and Ryan Fox. Harry Hall plus 140, Ryan Fox plus 150 to go top 30. Safe. I think all three of those guys have a decent week. They don't even need to win or top 10. Just kind of get you in the top 30. The two with plus odds, I think, are some juicy numbers there. So that's a wrap for tonight. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button and give us a follow. A huge thank you to Sam for joining us tonight, drafting with us. Sam, I think you're the favorite. I love the look of your squad this week. Will you be crowned the king of the draft, or will be a new winner when we draft next week for the Open? Sam, before we get you out of here, can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. You guys can find me on Twitter at Swagman95, exactly as it sounds. I do a lot of betting work over at Sports Illustrated. I do some fantasy football work over at Football Guys. But a lot of my content is basically just yelling on Twitter these days. And on the few chances that I'm invited to yell live on a stream, I will always take it. So thank you guys for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'll have to do it again soon.
Well, we appreciate you. If you follow Sam, you're going to have a ton of fun, and you will certainly make some more money. So make sure you give Sam a follow. Spence, what did I forget tonight?
Well, thank you for everybody who showed up. And Sam, thank you for joining us tonight. I know it was a last-minute thing. We really appreciate you joining. I will answer this question over in the Rotoballer Discord. I mean, I think that there's a couple courses that we've gone long enough on this, but I'll leave that over for the Rotoballer Discord. I'll post that in there. But no, thank you for everybody who continues to make us a part of their weekly research process. Good luck to Sam on this. The guests have needed it lately. So if you can get them out of the rut and you can get them looking back into contention, it all started with you this week.
I hope it works out. This is actually going to be the first golf DFS lineup that I've made in several years, actually. So I'm gonna put a lineup into the Drive the Green. So we'll go from there. Hopefully it will be $5 that returns me some money.
I think
I'll get to lord it over you guys as well. Yes. So that'll be nice.
I can't wait to see that green screen on Sunday afternoon. Good luck, everybody, this week. Tune in next week. We'll do it again.